Tonight's Day in History is part of the We the People series happening all year long recalls the first arrest of a crime that remains an unfortunate trend to this day.
September 10th, 1897, a 25-year-old London taxi driver becomes the first person ever arrested for drunk driving after he slammed his cab into a building. Across the pond, around 10 years later, in 1910, the United States would introduce the first laws against operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol.
Flash forward another 40 years to 1953, a former Indiana State Police captain unveils in the first ever breathalyzer. In modern times, more than 1 million people are arrested for driving under the influence each year.